Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. As you come to our stage, we have here this fantastic gentleman, an incredibly stellar and long career. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Allan Oppenheimer.
Welcome. It's hot. Oh, this is on, yeah. Howdy, folks.
Hello.
Howdy. That's as close as I can get to a North Carolina accent. Have I seen any of you downstairs? Did I sign any autographs or anything? Oh, there you go. Good. The rest of you damn well better come down there.
All right, Source Fish, you gotta stand up. You gotta show us what you got. Thank you for joining us again, sir. We sat together a couple weeks ago down in Florida. It was excellent. So
yes.
What I wanted to do is, so that everybody can know, I would love to hear the story about what got you interested in acting and where this all began for you.
Desperation. No, I started, I started appreciating by watching television. There was no television, there was radio when I was a kid. Remember radio? So I used to run home after school and listen to those radio programs. And then I found that I could imitate a lot of those people. And I think I had a pretty good ear. So, I'm going to get too close to this sometimes. So that's really how it all started in Amateurville. And then, actually in high school, did you ever hear of, what is the group now? Lang, forgive me. It's where a corporation will give a break to kids to get them started in their field. What is it called?
Anyway, First Start programs?
What?
First Start program?
No. They'll come to me at 3 in the morning and I'll wake them up.
All right, sounds good. Yeah.
But and I was about 15 years old going to high school in New York City. And we were sponsored by this group. And so we had a radio show once a week on WINS in New York City. And I was the announcer on the show. I remember early on, at the closing of the show, my line was, and be sure and tune in next week when our guest will be, and the pages are on my hands. So I said, oh, be sure and tune in next week when our guest will be. Oh, but that's our surprise for next week. Not quick. But then I went to college and I studied acting, but it's all about experience after a while, you know, you kind of learn on the job. And I did an awful lot of theater back east, in repertory theater in Washington, D.C. And then went to California in 1966 and started working in television and pictures and commercials. And I started doing voiceover in about the mid-70s. And then I fell into cartoons in the 80s. And that's when Filmation was hot and I became hot. And Hanna-Barbera, I worked there too. Did a lot of shows for all those people. Worked almost every day in a cartoon in either one of those or Marvel. And here we are, 30 plus years later. Whoever would have thunk it? I certainly didn't. But I'm very grateful. I met some fantastic people at these conventions who come to me and tell me their stories. The common line is, you voiced my childhood, to which my retort is, of course, I hope I got you out of it safely. Which, by the way, is interesting because a couple of people came to me and said how they came from severely dysfunctional families, and either they were bullied or whatever, and there was a message, if you remember, at the end of He-Man, Masters of the Universe, some kind of, and 3 of these people on 3 separate occasions said it had saved them from suicide. 7-year-old suicide. Well, that's pretty damn humbling, because you think you just God, you didn't go home. And you don't realize that you have an effect on young people. That, of course, everybody goes through that kind of trauma. But it's entertainment, but it's more than that. And I'm sure you all appreciate that. And so here we are. I'm doing these conventions more and more, and I'm loving it more and more, and I can't tell you how much you all mean to me. You think I mean something to you, how much you all mean to me. And I'm sure you've got some questions, and I'd love to answer them, even if I have to lie.
We have a microphone set up right there, so if you just go ahead and line up, I just will ask, please, just go one question at a time. You can go back to the end of the line, or...
I'll start us off. For you, if you don't mind.
Is that on? I don't hear you.
Hello, hello.
That's better.
You're a big guy, lean over.
So I'm curious, when you're doing your voiceover work, your voice acting, are you contained by yourself? Or are you working together as a group, doing your voices back to back?
Most of the time we're working together. So it's, first place, doing these things is like doing a radio show, which means you act off of each other. There's a script, of course. But you're dependent upon what you're getting from the other person. That's what good acting is. It's a partnership, if you will. It's a tennis match, back and forth the ball goes. Now sometimes that's not possible. You're out of town or something, and then you'll come back and they'll pick you up. And I remember in the mid-'80s, I was working 2 days a week in London and 3 days a week in LA for 6 weeks. And so I was flying back and forth on an airline called TWA, about 100,000 miles, which I lost when it went bankrupt. Thanks, Carl Icahn. But they'd already recorded a lot of the He-Man, and then I would come in and they'd give me the Skeletor line. I did Skeletor, Merman, Man-at-Arms, and Cringer. So I remember Lou saying, okay, well, here's the line. And I said, wait a minute, let me hear what you recorded so I can answer in time, you know. Somebody says, how are you? You don't want to say, gee whiz, I'm fine. No, you want to say in the same tone, gee whiz, I'm fine. So that's the way it was. I was working with them, but I wasn't. Now, when we did the Smurfs at Hanna-Barbera, we were all together in a room, anywhere from 6 to 10 or 12 people. And that was really a lot of fun. And you know, some of the cast of the Smurfs, I mean, they were wonderful.
Thank you.
Got it? Good.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Matt.
Into the mic.
Okay. My name's Matt. How you doing?
We're good.
Skeletor and Falcor were two of my favorite characters as a child. I was just wondering what your favorite characters were as a child.
What was the first one you said?
Skeletor.
Skeletor and Falcor. Something about mine too. There were some others. I loved doing the Rock Fighter, which happened by accident. I was already finished doing Falcor.
I was just wondering your favorite characters as a child, if you had any.
Oh, as I was a child? Oh, Don Winslow of the Navy, and Roy Rogers, and Superman, and all that stuff at the time, which I can't remember all of them. I wish I still had my Don Winslow periscope and my secret Dakota ring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again. I was well, the never-ending story thing. The never-ending story thing when you brought up Falcor and Rock Fighter, you were also Bork. You were pretty much every voiceover role. That's terrible.
Broke up. I didn't say what you said.
Keep going, keep going, yeah.
You were every voiceover role except the Turtle in Never-Ending Story. Was that intentional to play all the characters, or was that?
No, that was the director's greed. No, he signed me for Falcor. And I'll tell you a little story about that. Now, what you're seeing is the second version. I don't mean the second movie. I mean my second version. Because at the end of the first day, Wolfgang said, well, that's very good, fine, thank you very much. I said, wait a minute, let me hear a playback. And he did, and I said, no, I've got to come in and do it again. Oh, all right. So I came back the second day, and I re-recorded it. And what you're seeing is the difference. The first day was technically correct. The second day, Falcor had heart, and that's the difference. So when I finished it, he said, thank you very much. I started out, he said, oh, just a minute. Could you do the Rock Fighter? I said, well, let me see it. Well, I knew I loved that guy right away. So I did. I love chords. I love doing that. I said, thank you very much. Oh, that's fun on the stage. Could you do Gomorrah? I said, let me see it. I love doing that. Thank you very much. Oh, there's a few lines as the narrator at the end. Could you? Yes, Wolfgang. So he got 4 characters for the price of 1, and a lousy hotel, too. Yes.
So in the Toys That Made Us documentary on Netflix, the original creators for He-Man said they intended the series to be all much darker and much more grim, including Skeletor. But as we all know, Skeletor turned out to be pretty much the opposite of that. Did you play any role in Skeletor becoming the goofball he is now, or?
It's a very, very good question. Yeah, because I saw, when I auditioned, I saw the Cell, CEO, and so I saw the bony, and immediately I thought, well, the voice has got to be bouncing off that. So that's why I went up here, nasal. Now, the first episode, there were no comedy lines in it. He was a villain. I try to avoid playing villains as your stock villain. And so I made him, kind of funny. And I have no idea why I came up with the laugh, but it has become kind of iconic, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
So after a while, they just began to write for me. And I remember we've been doing the show, we did it 124 episodes. But somewhere around the 20th or 30th episode, Lou Scheimer said, listen, why don't you make up a few insults that we can put in here? Well, I probably made about 50 and maybe 1 got on the air. The rest of them are you know where. On the floor, dirty schmutz, right there. But we had a wonderful time. Okay?
Thank you. Bend it down, yeah.
There you go.
There you go, yeah.
Okay.
What was your favorite character to voice act?
What did you say? Favorite character? Favorite
Voice
character.
act.
You know, I had a lot of favorites. I had Skeletor. I had Merman. It's a water, you see. And I had Cringer, who became Battlecat. I also did some, I don't remember the show now, but I played Sheriff Scuzz. They're stars now. I found out later on when I was doing that I was secretly imitating George C. Scott, and I didn't care. Who by the way, I worked with. Yeah, I did. I did the Hindenburg, the movie The Hindenburg with George. And now, sometimes I steal from myself, like I did Merman, I showed you, but I also did Sea Spray in Transformers. So I just did, if they were both in water, I plagiarized myself, which you're allowed to do, of course. But I had a lot of favorites. Vanity Smurf was a favorite of mine, too. Vanity Smurf, always remember, oh, I'm so pretty. Oh, I think I love my ego, I got away with that one. But there's a lot of favorites. Almost without exception, whatever I'm doing at the time is my favorite. Otherwise, you couldn't do it. If you don't love if you're a writer, by the way, and my wife is a writer, and she said, I can't stand to see these villains die. I love them so. So I feel kind of the same way about the characters, even if they're evil. You never play them as evil because they don't think they're evil. They just do evil things, which is your judgment to them. They're just perfect. Does that help you at all? Am I confusing you? We'll talk about it later.
Thank you, guys. All right.
I was just wondering if you have an opinion on just voice acting in animation today versus voice acting in animation back in the 80s. I've noticed that most of the cartoons when I was growing up, everything was so toy-based.
I don't think there's any comparison with what the animation is today, limited animation. There's no smoothness. I don't find very much artistry in it. I find the storylines. I don't buy into a lot of violence. I don't go to car chase movies and violence. I find there's enough in my damn life, like what's going on in the world. I want entertainment. So I don't much care for what they're doing today. I just don't think it's not my cup of tea at all.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Oppenheimer, first of all, I love your work. Thank you for sharing with us, and thank you for coming out and sharing yourself with us. I think we all really appreciate it. Thank you. So my question maybe is slightly oddball, but it's harmless. So have you ever been, on one of those calls where they're having you wait, and then they ask you what your problem is, and you get transferred to another person? Have you ever just wanted to break out Skeletor on one of those calls and just demand that they give you what you need? Yes, you have, haven't you?
Sure given me a great idea.
Yes! My work here is done. Thank you, sir.
I'll tell you a little funny anecdote. It's not about that, but you reminded me of it. An airline line, American Airlines, the plane is canceled, and long line, and said, we'll try and take care of you all just as soon as we can. And there's one guy at the back who's very impatient. He runs up to the front. Listen, I gotta get on this plane. I got a business meeting here. I gotta get. Just wait your turn, sir. We're taking care of everybody. Do you know who I am? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a man here who doesn't know who he is.
Of your character work that you've done through television in the 60s and 70s, what do you find was your best experiences on some of the television shows that you did in the earlier years?
Well, I think probably I had a lot of wonderful experiences, but most of all, it's got to do with the people I'm working with, Of course, the last series I did was Murphy Brown, and I loved working with Candace and that whole cast. And then I did 3 or 4 episodes of Mama's Family. Anybody gets a chance to work with Betty White, they better jump at it. She is fantastic and great fun. And Vicki Lawrence, we had just a great time, I found that almost all the series, I started on Hogan's Heroes. I found the people were wonderful, and I remember I did 3 Bonanzas in 1 year. And I'm allergic to horses. I had to take an antihistamine before I got aboard. But every New York City boy wants to do a Western, So I was coached by a very fine stunt woman. And then I was cast in Little Big Man. You remember that movie? All right. So there's a charge, Custer's Charge, And I'm on my horse and riding, and I lost my foot out of the stirrup and wrapped my leg around the horse, which made him go to the right towards the cameras. So a stuntman saw this, pulled up alongside of me and steered me this way. I would have ruined that shot. But I love doing Westerns. Yankee Hicks, we love that stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, so you do some amazing work, and I do appreciate all the cartoons you've done. I appreciate all the cartoons, all the work you've done in the past. I have a very good friend of mine that's actually out of country right now, and she could have been here. I was wondering if you could share with us some of your lines, some of your favorite lines from Skeletor.
Well, all I can remember is a couple of the insults,
If you'd share some of those, maybe some that
everybody's favorite seems to be "you royal boob." And the other one I love is "you flea-bitten fur piece." I'm going to make I can't remember the rest of it. And I could write a book about what you don't know. That's another favorite. If you've got something, give them to me and I'll read them for you. Okay.
Hey, I've got a question. You've been in the voice acting business for a very long time. So I want to know, how has the process changed over the years? Have some things gotten easier? Have some things gotten hard? Like trying to nail those auditions you were seeking?
I don't think that ever changes. No, we audition for something based on script and based on what the cell looks like. And I certainly have auditioned for a lot of stuff that I didn't get. And auditions are auditions, you know, you win some, you lose some. But nothing's really changed about the process, and if that's your question. No, that's the same thing. Same thing as auditioning for TV or theater or whatever.
All right, thank you.
The odds are against you, but you never want to think that.
How did you feel about Frank Langella's Skeletor and the
well, you know, I'll interrupt you there, Frank. I've known Frank for 60 plus years. A wonderful actor, wonderful. But he's wrong for the part of Skeletor. And I can't do what Frank does. You know, he's perfect. He's just a marvelous actor. But he ain't no goddamn Skeletor. And he knows I feel that way. Thank you. Okay. But tell him I love him anyway when you see him. Okay.
I was wondering, what did you think of Brian Dobson's portrayal of Skeletor?
I don't want to talk about that.
As compared to yours.
Oh.
Since yours is excellent.
What did you say?
He said yours was excellent.
I agree with you. Thank you very much.
Let me ask you this, this is a fun story. Lou Scheimer, who was pretty much the head of Filmation, created all this, you discovered a bond with him that you didn't find out until after you started working.
That's right. I auditioned for Lou, and he wrote, created, produced the show, and did a lot of the direction. And we've been working year and a half maybe. I suddenly noticed he had a ring on his finger. I said, is that a school ring? He said, yes. I said, what is school? He said, well, that was Carnegie and Tech. I said, really? I went there too. We were there at the same time. He was on the second floor, I was on the first floor. We never knew each other. We also found out that we dated the same woman at different times.
Before He-Man came around, you almost had a test run. Filmation did a fantastic adaptation of Flash Gordon. And you did Make Them Merciless.
Well, that's kind of a steal from Skeletor. Wow. I kind of did it, and then I tweaked it a little bit. Me, I also did Oil Can Harry on what show was that?
Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse, Oil Can Harry, I did both of those. So they're kind of variations of the same thing. Skeletor is for mean was for mean, and a little more. I probably lengthened the words more, you know. I visualize when I'm acting. I really see the situation. I see me as a locale, and I just think I've always done that, and I don't know how anybody can act if you can't imagine through your visualization and all of that. It doesn't come from here. It comes from here and here. And it's really imagination and being able to use your imagination. Not being afraid to take a chance. God knows I've taken a chance and fallen on my face an awful lot, but you've got to take the chance. Sometimes it works and you're here 30 years later.
And we're very glad for that, aren't we?
Yeah.
Did you ever have a character that just at the time it was just, oh, I can do this, but then after a while it just got harder and harder and harder to the point where you're like, I'm happy never doing that voice again?
I certainly had that in a play I was doing at the Music Center in Los Angeles. I was cast in this play, and I rehearsed for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. I just didn't get it. I didn't get it. It didn't make sense to me. And the director was trying to help me, and finally I woke up one morning and I went to rehearsal and I called him over and I said, I got to tell you something. I think I'm miscast in this part. He said, oh, I do too, and I didn't know how to tell you that. I was going to wait a little longer. Thank you. And I was. You can't do it all. And I was terribly miscast. He cast somebody else in it. I went to see the play, I still don't understand it. But you can't, sometimes that happens, you know. I auditioned for something in New York for a road company of an Arthur Miller play. And when I finished the audition, they said, thank you very much, that was very good. I said, how would you know? You were so busy out there talking. How did you? He said, well, we were talking about you. Nobody has taken that interpretation and wants you to come back tomorrow to read for Arthur Miller. I went, Jesus, I've done it again. I've done it again. So you just don't know. Sometimes you hit something and they say, we never thought of that. What a great approach. You wind up with a part. That's kind of nice.
What has been your favorite theater role?
Well, an awful lot of them. The last big one I did was, I did the musical Sunset Boulevard, and I did that for 3 years. With Glenn Close and Betty Buckley, I did Cecil B. DeMille. I also did, I was 10 years at the Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. We did 6 plays a year, classics and some new plays. I played Mr. Peachum in one of them. I've done some wonderful, wonderful parts. 12 Angry Men, did that too. I've done a couple of plays that were new scripts. They were terrible. There was one called The Lepers. I thought it was a stupid play anyway. I wore long stockings and put cotton balls in there like I had big leprous and growths on my legs. I hated the damn show. Anyway, in rehearsal, I threw down the script and I went to the dressing room and Alan Schneider, who was the director, came and knocked on the door and said, I want to talk to you. I said, what is it? He said, we're going to do this play and you're going to do it. I said, I hate the script. It's the worst thing ever. He said, oh, if this was done in New York, you'd do it. I said, never, never. Well, 2 or 3 years later, I was in New York doing it. He came backstage and said, wouldn't do it in New York, huh? Still a lousy play.
Never. So anyway, so like I said, the microphone's up here. If anyone wants to throw on up, I'll just keep, okay, we got it.
Hello, my name's Rachel. I just wanted to ask you, I know that you started off saying that you had been spoken to by a few fans that they were encouraged by lines in He-Man. Do you have any characters that you've played that you look back at and they touched you in a way?
Well, that's a fantastic question. I've never even thought of it.
Well, good.
Give me an hour. I'll think. That's just a great, great question. And I would imagine that if something is well written and you play it fully, it has an effect on you and an effect on your life.
Right.
But I can't be specific with you, but that's a damn good question.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
What was it like working with Lindsay Wagner?
With who?
Lindsay Wagner.
Well, that's interesting because I only worked with her on one show.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the last show of the season of the $6 Million Man, and she was a guest. And she died under my knife. But there was so much fan mail, they decided they had to bring her back. So I had already been replaced by Marty Brooks. Now, they did a flashback from the year before using me, and then they went to Marty. Well, they had to make Marty up to look something like me, yeah, for that 1 or 2 takes. And then when the show got going, then Marty could become himself, you know, it wasn't. So I actually only worked with Lindsay when I killed her. Lousy doctor I was.
First question, how are you doing? Are you doing well?
I think so.
So next question.
I'll put it back in line. Go. So recently it's been announced that She-Ra is getting a reboot. Most of us are aware of that.
Would you consider coming back to the role of Skeletor or any other He-Man characters?
The show's gone now. How would I come back?
If they decided to reboot it, would you?
Well,
if they came to you.
They're not going to do that. You mean to make another series based on that? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Why would they do that? They're running the reruns now, and they're popular. No, they wouldn't do that. But if they do, let me know.
Well, it is true. They are redoing a new version of She-Ra. They just announced that.
Really?
Yes. They
Does
announced
Melendi know that?
I don't know. I haven't heard any comments to it. The design has been modernized, and I will just leave it at that. I will leave it at that because I don't want to go down there. All right. Star Trek. What you got?
What is modernized? The miniskirt? What is that?
I tell you what. I'll bring him a picture. You talk. I'll bring him a picture of her and show you.
I know what you mean. Yes, sir.
So you've been a few characters on a few Star Trek shows back in the 90s. You've been a guest character on a few Star Trek episodes in the 90s. I was wondering what your favorite character was. You were on Next Gen, and DS9, and Voyager.
You're talking about the three characters that I did. My favorite was probably the one where I wasn't the longest in makeup. Karath was over 3-hour makeup. Oh, torturous. It looks wonderful, but it was the middle of summer, it was very hot, and you get to the studio at 4 in the morning and you're on the set at 7 or 8 o'clock. I really don't have much recollection, except, I just did them, and I had never seen them on the television, so I don't know. Also, usually, I avoid watching something that I've done, especially near the time when I do it, because then it's always bad to me. I did a motion picture with Richard Pryor called Moving. And my wife and I were on a plane, and they were showing the movie Moving, which I'd never seen. And I turned to her and I said, I am so terrible in this, I overact so. But we were 30,000 feet, I could hardly walk out, So I watched it and I thought, pretty funny, So I had about 2 years or 3 years in between in order to forget what I had done and look at it more objectively.
And I loved you in Never Ending Story, so thank you.
I love that movie. Oh, that's a great movie.
Director, not so much.
I don't care about it.
Yeah, I know. Just what you said. And we got another. Oh yeah. So this is the new version of She-Ra.
Okay.
It's not the right damn She-Ra.
And they're making their choices. So, young man, you got a question for us? Go ahead and twist the microphone down. There you go. There you go.
On He-Man, what was the episode that the episode that you least didn't like to record on He-Man?
That he least didn't like? That would make him the one his favorite. Do you mean the ones he didn't like the most?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any episode of He-Man you did not care for?
No. I like them all when I'm doing them, and I like them all when I saw them too. Yeah. No, I never disliked any episode that I did of that, or of any cartoon that I did, as a matter of fact. I liked them all. Because, it's hard work, and they work very hard in the animation and the editing, and what you see is the best that they could come up with, and I think it's pretty good.
Thank you. Go to the brave soul, brave soul. Oh yeah, come.
You've done a lot of voiceover work. What was your favorite role in live action that you've ever done?
In live action, I tend to like comedy much more than drama. So I loved playing Mayor Tom Miller on Mama's Family. I liked the Hindenburg. I did the original Freaky Friday. I did the movie Star, which was my first picture with Julie Andrews. I don't think I ever have done a movie where I didn't like the character or wasn't pleased with what happened. I'll tell you this is an interesting thing. The first Bonanza that I did, I went to see dailies the next day. You know what dailies are? Where you go to, they run them for the director and producer to see what the day's shooting looked like before. So I went to the dailies the next day. And when I came out, the director said to me, I don't want you ever to go to dailies again. And I said, why? He said, because if you see something you like, you'll be repeating that all through the next episode. And if you see something you didn't like, you'll be destroyed in your work and you won't be able to do anything. And I took that to heart. I never went to look at any work I did after that. You remember the actress Ethel Barrymore, John Barrymore's sister? All right. Somebody asked her, what was your favorite role that you saw and you were in? She said, if I can imitate it. I've never gone to see anything that I did. I couldn't see myself on stage. I see no reason to look at myself in the movies. Bingo.
Fair. Hello. I noticed in He-Man that Cringer doesn't want. I mean, you voiced both Cringer and Battlecat, and I noticed that Cringer doesn't want to go through the transformation. Sort of played as a joke, but once he becomes Battlecat, he embraces that and he changes. So I was wondering your thoughts on that, and since you played them, whether you think that change comes from the power of He-Man's sword or from within Cringer himself?
Within Cringer himself. Cringer, most of that is not me. It's already things have been recorded with somebody. Too much. And Cringer, I also played a character called Frady Cat. And there's a similarity between Cringer and Frady Cat. But as I say, you can steal from yourself, you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
The character Cringer came to me just through his name, doesn't it? Cringer. You know. You get a lot of clues from the names of characters or what they look like. Yeah.
Yeah, over the side here. Go ahead, Buzz. Yeah.
Do you have any funny stories of anything that happened on He-Man?
Funny stories? No, not really. I mean, we all enjoyed working with each other and we laughed a lot. It was probably the ad-libs between us. But that's about it. There was nothing funny per se, aside from the interaction of two actors, three actors who really loved each other and loved working with each other.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, Skeletor is an iconic voice, and so is Optimus Prime. Did you ever get a chance to meet the guy who voiced any of the other major characters like He-Man? I'm sure he did, but like Optimus Prime and the other ones?
Optimus Prime does these conventions. He's very popular.
Okay, I didn't ever see
You know,
that.
he filled this room 10 times over. Yeah.
And I was wondering if you might could say like "Run the Train You Run" or like "I'm a Luck Dragon." I was wondering if you could say "Run the Train You Run" or like "I'm a Luck Dragon." I didn't know if you might want to say those lines.
Run the train. Oh, you mean as
the style chord?
Yes. Oh, run the trail, run. Oh. I love it when the trail, when Falcor can't reach his itch, and he says, "Could you reach back there and scratch me, please? Oh, that feels so good." I have to ask people to help me now to do that. Yes.
So I had the chance to get a hold of my friend in Korea now, and I have a line for it. I have a line for you if you don't mind for Skeletor's voice.
Go ahead, lay it on us, yeah.
Oh, you want me to read this for you?
If you don't mind, that'd be nice.
You have him on the phone?
I don't
Did you say he's in Korea?
He is, so I'll record it for you.
What's he doing in Korea?
So, he's EOD as well. So.
Oh, okay. All right, sir. Okay.
You want me to read this line?
If you don't mind.
No, I don't mind. Let me see it first. Okay.
Quiet as a second.
I don't want to feel good. I want to feel evil, James.
And tell him to have Raleigh Supercon and thank you for his service. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
What's your favorite cartoon to watch growing up?
Yeah.
Your favorite cartoon to watch growing up, if you watch any cartoons?
Oh, there were no cartoons when I was growing up. If I cartoons, I'd have to go to the movies and see a cartoon. You know,
What
like.
was your favorite radio show?
What?
What was your favorite radio
My
show?
favorite radio show? Oh, yeah. Well, that would have been the Lone Ranger, probably. Yeah. Superman, the Lone Ranger. No, that was before Dragnet, so I can't do anything about that. I love the Sunday night comedies, Jack Benny and Bernson Allen and Red Skelton and all of that. And then when television came along, of course, Jackie Gleason and what's his name? Imogene Coca and Sid Caesar. I worked with them in Vegas. We went 3 weeks to the New Frontier Hotel, 1967, I think it was. And I did Carl Reiner's part, and another friend of mine did Howie Morris, and it was Caesar and Coca, and it doesn't work on stage, nobody came. Yeah, 3 shows a night, and hardly anybody was there. It's television material, it's not stage material.
We have time for just 1 or 2 more questions. Somebody's got some for us. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello. First off, thank you.
Poor guy, what happened to your eyes?
So I was in costume earlier. That's what this is. So you mentioned Betty White.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts or anecdotes from working with her?
Do I have any thoughts about working with her?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. As I remember, she came in and called me Mayor Tidwillow. Oh, and she said, oh, I'm so sorry, let's do it again. Ah, Mayor Tidwillow, oh, I'm so sorry. I knew she was doing it 3 times, so she'd have something for the Christmas reel. But then when we got in bed together, fully clothed, we barely got through the scene. We giggled so much. She's a doll. Yeah. I wish I could see her again. She's a marvelous woman. Yeah.
That's cool. We have time for 1 more question from the audience, if anybody wants to throw something out. Somebody got a good one? All right,
when you got the original script, did you think that He-Man was going to be what it turned out to be, like the cult phenomenon?
Absolutely not. We have no idea when we start working what the final product will be, whether it will be popular or a dog. I did a series for Disney called The Wuzzles. Because the toys weren't made in time. Gummy Bears was the same year, their toys were ready. So they pulled the Wuzzles. I thought it was so clever and so good. We all did. And it never went anywhere. So a lot of it is dependent upon merchandising and the studio's decisions. You just don't. You just do the work and make the home. And here we are, 34 years later. Thank you very much, everybody.